My neighbor falsely accused me of neglect, so I proved she was the one harming her children. The knock on my door came early in the morning. Two social workers stood on my porch, their expressions professional but serious. They had received a report that my daughter was being left alone for hours, that our home was unsafe. My heart dropped. My daughter Lily was my entire world. I had never neglected her, never even raised my voice at her. But someone had made a false report, and now my family was under scrutiny. I knew immediately who was behind it. My neighbor Myra, the self-appointed guardian of our neighborhood, had been harassing me for months. She had filed endless complaints with the HOA and made my life difficult. But this was different. This was an attack on my family. I wasn't going to let Myra succeed. I started documenting everything she did, and what I found was far more concerning than I could have imagined. Myra wasn't just difficult. She was causing real harm to her own children, and I had the proof. I moved to the suburbs 3 years ago, after my divorce. I wanted a safe, quiet neighborhood where my daughter Lily could grow up, play outside, and make friends. The house was modest but charming, with a small backyard and a white picket fence. I thought I had finally found a peaceful place to raise my child. Myra lived 2 doors down. She was a middle-aged woman who seemed to believe it was her job to monitor everything that happened on our street. She filed complaints with the HOA about minor issues, reported neighbors for small infractions, and made it her mission to control the community. She was the kind of person who would call the authorities if your grass was half an inch too long. I first encountered Myra within weeks of moving in. Lily had left her bike on the sidewalk, a simple mistake. Myra marched over to my house and demanded that I control my child. I apologized, moved the bike, and thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. From that moment on, Myra seemed determined to make my life difficult. She filed complaints about my trash cans. She complained about my dog barking. He barked once for about 30 seconds. She complained about the color of my front door. Every week there was a new complaint. I tried to be polite, tried to keep the peace, but nothing I did seemed to satisfy her. The HOA sided with her every time. Myra had been on the board for years, and she used her position to push her agenda. I was fined repeatedly, threatened with liens, and made to feel like I was doing something wrong. I started to feel anxious about leaving my house, worried about running into her. I felt like I was being watched constantly. Then came the visit from Child Protective Services. 2 social workers arrived at my door. They told me they had received a report that Lily was being neglected, that she was left alone for hours, that our home was unsafe. I was shocked. I had never neglected Lily. I was a devoted mother who had sacrificed everything for my daughter, but someone had made a false report, and now my family was under investigation. The social workers interviewed Lily separately. I sat in my living room waiting, my hands trembling. When they emerged, their expressions had softened. Lily had been calm and articulate. She had told them about her bedtime routines, her favorite meals, the games we played together. There was no evidence of neglect. The case was closed within days, but the damage was done. I felt a deep sense of injustice. My reputation had been called into question, and I was certain Myra was behind it. She had tried to create problems for my family, and she had almost succeeded. I was angry, but I didn't confront Myra. I didn't think it would help. Instead, I decided to gather information. I installed security cameras around my house to document what was happening. I kept a journal of every interaction, every complaint. I noticed things about Myra that I hadn't paid attention to before. Her children, 2 young boys, were never allowed to play outside. They were always inside, always quiet. I rarely saw them. I never heard them laugh. I began to wonder what was happening in that house. One evening, I heard shouting coming from Myra's house. It was a child's voice, high-pitched and distressed. I looked out my window and saw Myra pulling one of her sons by the arm, her expression hard. She pushed him inside and closed the door. The shouting continued for a while, then stopped. I felt a knot in my stomach. I had suspected something was wrong, and now I had reason to believe there was. Myra wasn't just a difficult neighbor. She was causing harm to her children. I called Child Protective Services. I told them what I had seen and heard. I shared my observations about the children's behavior. They launched an investigation, and what they found was deeply concerning. Myra's children had been neglected. They were underweight, fearful, and showed signs of emotional distress. They were removed from her custody. Myra was arrested and charged with child endangerment. The news spread through the neighborhood. People were shocked. The woman who had presented herself as the moral authority of our community had been hiding a dark secret, I testified in court. I showed the judge my journal entries, my recordings, my observations. I told them about the shouting, the fear in the children's eyes. Myra was convicted and sentenced to prison. Her children were placed with a foster family. I felt a sense of justice, but I didn't feel satisfaction. The situation was tragic. Myra had caused real harm to her children, and they would carry those scars. I reached out to the foster family, offering to help in any way I could. I donated clothes and toys. I wanted to show those children that there were good people in the world. Lily, my daughter, was confused by everything that had happened. She had been scared by the CPS visit. I sat her down and explained the situation as gently as I could. I told her that sometimes people make bad choices, but that we can always choose to do good. I told her that we would always be safe. The ordeal changed me. I had been passive for too long, allowing Myra to push me around because I didn't want conflict. But the false report had been a wake-up call. I realized that I had to be stronger, more willing to stand up for what was right. I had to protect my family. I joined the HOA board, determined to create a more fair and transparent system. I worked with other residents to rewrite the bylaws and ensure that no single person could dominate the board again. It was a small victory, but it felt meaningful. The neighborhood began to change. People who had been intimidated by Myra started coming out of their shells. They started talking to each other, supporting each other. I made new friends, people who had been too afraid to approach me before. We organized block parties and community events. It was everything I had wanted when I first moved in. The aftermath of Myra's conviction was a time of adjustment. The neighborhood was processing the revelation that someone they had trusted had been causing harm to her own children. People approached me, apologizing for not speaking up sooner, for not supporting me when Myra was making my life difficult. I accepted their apologies, but I didn't dwell on them. I was focused on moving forward. Lily had been affected by the ordeal. She had always been a happy child, but the CPS investigation had shaken her sense of security. She started having nightmares, waking up in the middle of the night. She became more anxious, more withdrawn. I knew I had to help her heal. I found a therapist who specialized in childhood anxiety. Lily started going to weekly sessions, and slowly she began to open up. She talked about her fears, her confusion, her anger. She asked me questions I didn't always know how to answer. I did my best to explain, to help her understand that some people have problems that cause them to hurt others. It wasn't a satisfying answer, but it was the truth. I also found a therapist for myself. The years of harassment had taken a toll on my mental health. I had been anxious and constantly on edge. I needed to process everything that had happened, to let go of the anger. My therapist helped me see that I had been a victim, but I had also been a survivor. She helped me reclaim my sense of self. The healing process was slow, but it was also transformative. I started journaling, writing down my thoughts and feelings. I started meditating, finding moments of peace. I started saying no to things that drained me and yes to things that nourished me. I was rediscovering who I was. I also started connecting with other parents who had been falsely accused. I joined a support group, sharing stories and supporting each other. I became a volunteer advocate, helping other families navigate the CPS system. It was meaningful work that gave me purpose. A year after Myra's conviction, I received a letter from her. It was handwritten, the words smudged with tears. She apologized for everything she had done, claiming that she had been consumed by jealousy and insecurity. She asked for my forgiveness. I read the letter 3 times, feeling nothing. No anger, no pity. Just a quiet acceptance that Myra was no longer part of my life. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I had already moved on. I heard that Myra had been released from prison and was trying to rebuild her life. I hoped for her sake that she would find peace. But I didn't reach out to her. Her journey was her own. The neighborhood gradually healed. The HOA board I had joined implemented new policies, creating a more transparent system. Myra's influence was gone, and the community was finally free to be a community. We organized block parties, neighborhood cleanups, and holiday celebrations. We supported each other through illnesses and family crises. It was everything I had wanted when I first moved in. I also found new friendships. I became close with a woman named Maria, a single mother who had moved into Myra's old house. She was warm, kind, and fiercely protective of her children. We bonded over our shared experiences, our struggles as single mothers, our determination to build a better life. She became my confidant and my friend. Lily continued to thrive. She made new friends, joined the school soccer team, and discovered a love for art. She was still quiet and thoughtful, but she was no longer anxious or withdrawn. She had found her confidence, her voice, her place in the world. I watched her grow, and I felt proud of the person she was becoming. I also started dating again. It was a step I had been afraid to take, but I was ready. I wanted to find someone who would respect me, support me, and love me for who I was. I met Michael at a community event. He was a teacher, kind and thoughtful. He made me laugh and challenged me to be my best self. We started dating, and within a year, we were engaged. Michael was everything I had been looking for. He was patient, kind, and emotionally available. He loved Lily as if she were his own daughter, supporting her dreams and encouraging her to be bold. He respected my independence, celebrated my successes, and held me when I was sad. He was my partner and my friend. We got married on a sunny afternoon, surrounded by our friends and family. Lily was my maid of honor, beaming with pride. It was a perfect day, a celebration of everything I had overcome. I looked at Michael, at Lily, at the life we had built together, and I felt a profound sense of gratitude. I had come so far. I had faced false accusations, harassment, and uncertainty. I had been shaken and afraid, but I had also been resilient and determined. I had fought back and I had won. I had protected my family, exposed a harmful situation, and built a better life. The road to healing was long, but I had made it. I had climbed out of the darkness and into the light. I was happy, healthy, and complete. I thought about Myra sometimes, but not with anger. I thought about her with a quiet compassion, a recognition that she had been a victim of her own struggles. I hoped she had found peace. I hoped she had changed, but I didn't need to know. Her story was no longer my story. I sat on my porch, watching Lily and Michael play in the backyard, their laughter floating through the air. I felt a warm breeze on my face, the sun on my skin, and a profound sense of peace in my heart. I had everything I had ever wanted. I was safe, I was loved, I was free.